Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating microscopic dive straight into the human brain. We're going to explore exactly how our minds process extreme stress and really decode a condition that affects millions of people across the globe. It's a topic that gets misunderstood constantly, but I promise you, once you see the actual biological mechanics behind it, it completely changes how you view trauma. We are talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. We're going to break down the precise neurochemical pathways that define it and look at how the brain quite literally rewires itself when faced with absolute danger. Let's get into it. So picture this. Why would the smell of a simple, cozy campfire suddenly trigger an intense, overwhelming wave of panic in someone? The answer to that question is the absolute key to understanding PTSD. And I want to make something crystal clear right out of the gate. PTSD is not a personal failure. It's not a sign of weakness, and it is certainly not a choice. It is a biological malfunction of the exact mechanisms that are designed to keep us alive. When we start looking at this as a biological reality rather than some sort of character flaw, that's when we open the door to real empathy and actual healing. All right, part 1, the biology of trauma. How the brain manages danger. Look, experiencing trauma is, unfortunately, pretty much a universal human experience. Throughout our lives, many of us are going to face highly distressing events. And often, we process them, we survive, and we move on without any long-term psychological scars. But for millions of us, the imprint of those experiences just doesn't fade. To understand why, we have to look at the fight-flight-freeze response. This is your brain's automatic, built-in biological alarm system. It gets tripped by major, life-altering ordeals, things like losing a loved one, domestic violence, severe illness, combat, or natural disasters. These events create such profound feelings of danger and total helplessness that your brain basically says, okay, I need to take emergency control right now. It flips a biological switch to protect your body from what it perceives as extreme danger. Now, let's zoom in and look what happens the exact millisecond that alarm gets tripped. It is incredibly fast. Boom. Step 1, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, also known as the HPA axis, activates. Step 2, it instantly fires off signals to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically the intricate communication network talking directly to your internal organs. Step 3, this network yells at your adrenal glands to release a massive chemical cascade. Your body is instantly flooded with multiple stress hormones. This isn't just a mood or a mental state. This is a rapid, dynamic biological transformation happening inside you in literal fractions of a second. And that chemical flood leads directly to immediate physical changes. Your heart rate skyrockets. Your breathing accelerates so you can take in more oxygen. Your muscles tense up, getting ready for explosive action. The body is literally rerouting its resources so you can physically defend yourself or run for your life. And here's the thing. Even after the immediate crisis is over, those incredibly high levels of stress hormones can linger in your body for days. This totally explains that jumpiness, the nightmares, and the lingering anxiety you might feel right after, say, a near-miss car crash. Moving on to Section 2, when the alarm sticks, the transition from normal reaction to PTSD. Normally, a few days or weeks after a traumatic event, those stress hormone levels stabilize. The alarm shuts off, and your brain goes back to its baseline. But for a small percentage of people, that just doesn't happen. The biological alarm system gets stubbornly stuck in the on position. Sometimes it even fades temporarily, only to rear its head months later. Now, while neuroscientists are still piecing together exactly what happens in the brain, a leading theory points straight to the role of hormones, particularly cortisol. The idea is that in PTSD, cortisol just keeps constantly triggering that fight-flight-freeze response long after the danger has passed. It essentially acts like a wedge, keeping the alarm locked in the on position. And this constant state of high alert actively drains your normal, baseline brain function and sets off a whole host of debilitating symptoms. So what does this look like day to day? These persistent symptoms generally fall into 4 main buckets. First, you have intrusive thoughts. We're talking vivid dreams or terrifying flashbacks where the trauma literally feels like it is happening all over again. Second, you see active avoidance of anything that might bring up memories of the event. Third, there are pervasive negative thoughts and feelings, intense fear, unyielding anger, or really heavy guilt. And fourth, reactive symptoms like severe irritability and chronic sleep issues. Now keep in mind, not everyone gets all these symptoms or gets them to the same degree. But generally, when these issues stick around for more than a month, that's when a clinical diagnosis of PTSD is often made. Now you might be wondering, why does the alarm stick for some people and not others? Well, there are a few known risk factors. Genetics definitely play a role. Experiencing intense, ongoing stress rather than just a one-off incident is a massive factor too. Prior mental health issues can leave the brain a bit more vulnerable, and so can a lack of emotional support during and after the trauma. But I want to be super clear here. Even with all this data, the exact underlying reason why the brain's alarm fails to shut off in certain individuals, it remains a really complex medical mystery. Which brings us to Section 3, the power of triggers, when the everyday becomes overwhelming. This is where we get to the absolute core of PTSD, a heightened sensitivity to triggers. Triggers are everyday physical and emotional stimuli that the brain has incorrectly but powerfully hardwired to the original trauma. It's when totally mundane, harmless parts of everyday life suddenly become overwhelmingly dangerous to the brain. Think back to our campfire example. On the outside, it's external reality, just the smell of a harmless, crackling campfire on a nice evening. But on the inside, for someone whose trauma involved fire, their internal reality is the absolute terror of feeling trapped inside a burning building. To the outside observer, it's just smoke. But to the person with PTSD, it is literally a matter of life and death. Harmless sensations, a smell, a specific sound, even just a certain phrase, provoke these massive, uncontrollable reactions. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. A trigger is not just a bad memory. It is not just feeling a little sad about the past. When that person smells the campfire, the exact same neurochemical cascade that occurred during the original trauma is powerfully reactivated. Their brain floods their body with the exact same stress hormones they felt when they were actually trapped in that fire. It brings back the identical physical feelings of panic and total helplessness. Biologically speaking, they aren't just remembering the trauma, they are reliving it in that very moment. Because these triggers can be so completely random and unpredictable, the cruel result is often profound isolation. Sufferers will go to extreme, exhausting lengths to dodge potential triggers, shrinking their world down until they are incredibly isolated. They start feeling invalidated, ignored, and just deeply misunderstood. Imagine feeling like your entire life has been put on pause, frozen in the moment of your worst trauma, while you watch the rest of the world effortlessly move forward. The emotional toll of maintaining that constant vigilance is absolutely exhausting. Section 4. Pathways to healing, actionable hope, and societal support. As dark as that isolation can be, here is the good news. Recovery is absolutely possible. No one has to stay permanently locked in that biological alarm state. Rewiring the brain takes work, no doubt about it, but the tools to do it are out there and they are highly effective. The crucial first step? Always a professional mental health evaluation to accurately identify what's going on and connect the patient with the right resources. From there, psychotherapy is incredibly effective. It helps patients actively unpack and understand their specific triggers, slowly breaking down that intense neurochemical association. Sometimes, medication is brought in to make the acute physical symptoms more manageable so the therapy can actually do its job. And finally, self-care practices like mindfulness and regular physical exercise are amazing for helping regulate the nervous system, giving patients back a sense of control over their own bodies. But what if you're on the outside? What if you are the friend or family member of someone dealing with this? The most powerful thing you can do is just provide social support, unconditional acceptance, and deep empathy. Simply let them know that you believe what they are experiencing is real, because it is. Do not blame them for their reactions, because remember, those reactions are biological cascades, not conscious choices. If they're open to it, gently encourage them to seek a professional evaluation, but make sure you're doing it from a place of support, not judgment. You know, PTSD is very often referred to as the secret wound. It's a poignant phrase, isn't it? It gets called that because unlike a broken arm or a physical scar, it presents absolutely zero external physical signs. A person can be fighting a massive biological and psychological battle on the inside while looking completely perfectly fine on the outside. This invisibility is exactly what makes the condition so isolating, and it's why understanding the underlying biology is so incredibly important for every single one of us. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Just because an illness is invisible doesn't mean it has to be silent. It is on all of us to speak up, to offer empathy, and to actively break the silence and the stigma surrounding psychological trauma. By understanding the true biology of PTSD, by really recognizing the reality of those triggers in that fight or flight cascade, we can transform our judgment into compassion. So ask yourself, how can you help break that silence today? Thank you so much for joining me, and as